was because it's such a cult film.
Yeah.
If you watch it back now, it is quite dated, but it's got such a following.
I meant to watch it again. I've not watched it again.
Yeah,
I've got it on
watched it
TV. I need
recently,
to watch it.
after we did this, and they're both.
I've not watched it.
You've never seen it?
No.
I would have thought that was the first thing you do.
No, well, it's interesting.
You stay away from
because as actors, I didn't watch it purely because you don't want to imitate and sponge and kind of subconsciously take what they've done, because then if I had seen somebody else's Reggie or you'd seen somebody else's Ronnie, without meaning to, you may have subliminally kind of taken in, kind of characteristics of theirs rather than your own decision. So, and then just not go around to it. But I plan to watch it. I just haven't seen it.
Well, that's really interesting actually, because Martin Kemp, I met him a couple of weeks ago, and he said that he didn't want to meet Ronnie because was that the exact reason he thought he would take on too much and it would be like an imitation.
Yeah.
But they met, Gary and him met Reggie. Yeah, I'm not sure why.
Hey, he says that. It was probably more the fact he was scared of Ronnie.
Probably.
Yeah, and didn't want to meet him, as in didn't want to get slashed or something. Probably the real reason, wasn't it? Oh yeah, it's because I didn't want to imitate him. I didn't want to get battered. Is basically.
Okay. How did it feel to portray the Krays?
It's a quite responsibility.
Yeah.
Because of what we've just been talking about in terms of this kind of. I don't just mean the film itself, but because there's this whole kind of history and almost they belong to the people of London, which is bizarre because they're criminals and actually pretty horrible people. But the people of London, and especially as soon as I think we both felt the same, got the film and suddenly started talking to people about it. So many people have stories about them that they really belong to London in particular. So, quite a responsibility.
Yeah, because they've got a legacy, and that's the interesting thing that we found is even today people are still brought up on the Krays story, the Krays image and their name and stuff, and everybody's heard of them. From the East End, you may drift out further around the country and people haven't heard of them, but East End born and bred, they've heard of the Krays, they know the stories, and everyone's got some sort of story or connection to them, whether it be second cousins or family or what have you. So there was definitely a responsibility there that we felt that we had to do it justice, that we, read as much as we can, learn, because there's not much footage of the guys, it's a lot of kind of notes or people that have interviewed them and other people, associates of theirs that were commenting on what they were like. But I mean, for me, in personally, it was dark. It was weird, but it was great fun.
I was going to say also it's really good fun.
Yeah, as an actor, they were phenomenal characters, and we talk about 3-dimension and all that and layers, but these guys did. They had real, Ronnie especially. You can talk more about how you had to get into his mindset, but you've got somebody you've got these internal voices and is going sadistic, doing some horrendous things, and then you've got their relationship. They were family men. They want to be described as English gents. That's how they would have loved to be received. So you've got so many layers to play. It's almost like a public persona, then behind closed doors, then what they're actually feeling. Both the Krays were gay, but not many people know that. So Reggie, for me, there was a lot of suppression there that you could play. So really, do you know what I mean? Really kind of gritty, get your teeth into kind of characters. So as actors, just what you kind of dream of landing on your desk is these sort of parts.
You kind of talked about this already, but there's like a strange admiration for the Krays. Why do you think that is?
I think it's kind of to do with the fact that they were East End boys at a time when the East End was kind of on its knees after the Second World War, who just through their own willpower and strength, physical strength, created this kind of legacy. I think it was something to do with the fact that they were twins, identical twins, although they looked less and less like each other. Obviously we're not identical, so we couldn't play on that as much, but we decided that we wanted to play on it as in terms of kind of a chemistry, that twins chemistry. But because, we've heard people talk that in fights, the reason they were hard to fight is because there were two of them and they looked the same, and it just, that split second that it takes people to register what's going on, that's all they needed to get on top. So the fact that they were so good at all these things and they emerged, and then they decided to kind of try and conquer the West End, and you know, all the famous Barbara Windsor stuff, and even Frank Sinatra, you know, who were all kind of seen around them, that it was kind of like unheard of for people, let alone gangsters from the East End, to bring those worlds together. And so I think they were the first people, whereas you had Al Capone and what have you in the 20s in America, they're the first British people to glamorise organised crime. And for that reason, unfortunately, I think people overlook the bad things they did in order to get there and sustain it. But I think that glamour of crime, and we all glamorise that high level crime in all our films and books and what have you, and they were the first people in this country to do that, and I think that Londoners feel a kind of pride towards that, but not all Londoners, you know, that we met a lot of people filming who really don't like them, so it's not across the board, it's just that's kind of what they've been left with.
I think this, for me, the simpler way of putting it was that you know, whether you agree with how they did it or what have you, I think it's because there's an absolute mutual respect to what they achieved. You've got two uneducated boys from the East End of London, no money in their pocket, you know, complete poverty, and they go and build an empire. And I think on that alone, it's almost like the American dream, do you know what I mean? Like, you can be anything you want to be, and these two boys, you know, they made a couple of wrong decisions, and if they potentially hadn't, they you know, it'd still be now today, you know, they would own East End, they'd own West End. It was almost ego and stuff. There's a few things that got ahead of them that kind of, you know, ruined it for them. But I think for me, it's simpler. It's that the legacy is they were two uneducated boys, didn't go to real school that much or uni or anything like that, and they built this empire. And I think that alone is what people can relate to, businessmen or what have you, is people that have look at that and go, well, I've got nothing, these guys have done it. I know how they did it, you know, that's what I'm saying, the black and whites of how they did it may not have been right, but it's that they did do it, and they achieved something that most people, you know, wouldn't even dream of, that they literally nearly had this. You talk about the British Empire, the Krays, you know, they had a hell of an empire themselves, you know, the amount of people they had working for them, you know, you can go as far as Birmingham, Scotland, and the story goes, you know, people have Africa, yeah. Oh yeah.
They went to Africa.
Yeah, Ronnie was a fan of Africa, but that's, for me, that's what I'd say. It's the legacy. It's the mutual respect of how much they achieved in such a short space of time. Because I mean, they went to prison at 32, 34. So you know, in terms of, so it's 10 years you're talking about. In 10 years of growing up, they conquered East End and pretty much took the majority of, you know, they had a good hold of the West End as well, so
not necessarily in a good way though.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. I'm not justifying how they did it. I'm just saying, if you actually look at it from a business point of view, it's quite impressive what they achieved, and I think that's why their legacy lives on, is the fact that, you know, they're just two boys from the streets, and they were living the dream. They were living celebrity lifestyles. That, you know, that's it.
The film takes place in the East End of London. Did you film in the East End at all?
Canning Town, yeah. A lot of it was Canning
most
Town.
of it. So yeah, we had a studio warehouse in Canning Town, where we kind of shot a lot of the internal scenes, and then most of our location shooting was also kind of East End, pubs in Canning Town area, snooker hall in Marmaid, Newington Green. Occasionally branched out, went west a couple of times, but yeah, lots of East End.
Well, the pubs of it, they look quite authentic. They have to be dressed up, or were they like how they were?
I will give a shout out to Felix Cole and Liam and the guys there. They, you know, we had a phenomenal production team. Felix was the production designer, because a lot of stuff is in the warehouse, like set build,
right?
And and it just, you know, it's on point to the era and stuff. And yeah, like the snooker hall was a set build, but yeah, some of the pubs.
There is some stuff that exists in London still that looks like it hasn't changed since the 50s, which is amazing.
Yeah, because it was a shame, like, we didn't get the actual Blind Beggar. You know, we didn't film in the, you know, which was...
That's film 2 anyway.
Oh, right, sorry. Sorry, it's all
Have you been to the Blind Beggar?
Yeah, I've recently been, yeah.
It's like a koi car in there.
Yeah, it's a strange environment. There's still the bullet, there's still the brick. Still a bullet hole.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, Simon, from the trailer of the Tom Hardy film, his portrayal of Ronnie seems very openly gay. In your film, it's alluded to, but it's not really discussed. The party's alluded to and something that went on, but is that something you talked about before, like if you were going to play in gay? Or?
In my mind, I was always homosexual, playing the part. And really, you can only kind of go on what is there in the script. I know the script writers wanted to focus more on the political aspect, which was a story they felt hadn't been told, and they felt that the homosexuality story had been told, and that was the angle they wanted to focus on. So they were always, obviously, they didn't want to deny it. It's always, as you say, alluded to. But there was one scene where it was very open, that they shot, and then we lost from the edit, which happened. And then there was another scene that was in the script, and then we never had an opportunity to film just because of the nature of the beast. So I think there could have been a few more opportunities where it came out, pardon the pun. But yeah, as an actor, I certainly always felt that Ronnie was gay, and that I was playing him as a gay man. I think in film 2 it kind of comes out a bit more, because there's kind of a line. Ronnie was very happy to be called a homosexual. He's very happy for people to know he was a homosexual, but he would never ever. I mean, he killed Jack Cornell because he called him a puff. So he wasn't effeminate in any way. I'll be very interested to see Tom Hardy and see how far he's pushed that kind of openness and that effeminacy, because I don't think that Ronnie was, but at the same time, he was never in denial about it.
I was surprised when I saw the trailer, because he says, "Oh, I like young boys." I was like, I've never seen that portrayal of the Krays like that, saying something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that pretty much everyone knows. Whenever we said we're playing the Krays, I guarantee the first thing that everyone says is, "Were you the gay one?"
Which is interesting, because, like we said, they both were.
I've read that recently. So allegedly both.
Well, Reggie did. He came out in prison.
Oh, did he? Oh, okay.
He came out in prison, but
and Ronnie married a woman in prison.
Yeah,
so they
but they were saying, without being rude, but like, was it prison gay, or you know, that he just finally felt comfortable? And I think for me it was that it was always there. I think everything I've read about the brothers, they were quite telepathic and stuff, and in tune, that I don't see how it couldn't be there. You know, I think they had similar interests and similar likes. So if Ronnie was, you know, into these young boys and stuff, and I think it was rumored that Reggie, I think we read that, you know, Reggie attended the parties and stuff. He just wanted the white picket fence, the wife, the house, and so he kind of was more suppressed. But I don't know how.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think it's an angle you could have gone down in the film, and to really show it, and to actually show it. And you know, we've spoken to a lot of people who have some very bad stories to tell about Ronnie's sexuality and what he did. Both of them actually, but in particular Ronnie, and what, you know, he did some horrendous crimes against boys or young men who wanted to be in the firm. And I think that's a route you could definitely go down. I think when you're making a film, though, you just cannot tell every story, and the story that these guys wanted to tell was the political, the power, abuse of power story.
That was actually really interesting.
So yeah, I think it's just the fact that, you know, you only have 90 minutes really to tell us all these stories, and it does come out more in the second film, I think. But yeah, no,
It
I
could
mean,
quite-
as a character, I certainly played it in my head. The scene where there were all the girls with their tops off as a character, I was only looking at the boys with their tops off, which is, you know,
Well, for me,
probably
that's
not
still
picked
a
up on.
bizarre addition. I don't understand why
There were girls there.
there was girls there.
There'd been girls there.
I was away for that day. So. But yeah, really good, because the thing with it is, it's so hard. It's so fruitful, their life, and how much there is to tell. It could quite easily, for me, make a 10-part drama series or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I look forward to seeing Legend, how they've done the whole story in 2 hours. Because we've got 2 films, and that still missed out so much of their life, so much of all the time they were in the army and stuff. Because there's a lot of comedy there. What they did in the army, didn't have any time to touch on that. So there's also other aspects of their life that we didn't have time to touch on. You know, like you said, the narrative was there, and then you could have other little subplots, but if you did too much, you would just lose what story you were trying to tell.
Talking of the Tom Hardy film, how does it feel having the 2 films released so closely together?
Piggyback PR.
Was that intentional? Or?
For the guy,
yeah, I
for
think
us, no.
I think that they wrote and they had this film in motion a long time before Legend was around, and then they heard that Legend was around, and it was kind of like either we leave it 10 years or we go for it, and we kind of use the publicity that Legend will create to, you know, an interest, and yeah, I think it's probably more difficult for us than it is for the film, because if it was pretty much any other actor in the world playing it right now, then people would be like, it'll be interesting to see what you do compared to that actor. But because it's Tom Hardy, who can do no wrong in the public,
he's a phenomenal actor.
Then everyone's just like, oh, you're in trouble.
And to be honest, we would love nothing more to sit down with him and have a beer and have a chat about how he found it and stuff. But you know, for me, if there was a part that guy was born to play, you know, the Krays is. But for us, you know, he's going to do a phenomenal job because he's a phenomenal actor, and you know, I feel like he was born to play that part. But as actors that are unknown and up and coming, I don't think it'll harm us being in the same breath as him. You know, if the fact that they've got £1 million that they're spending on the PR of their film, and then people end up buying our film, and people like what he does, but also likes what we do, and don't kind of, because they're different. They're their own entity. Yeah. You can't compare them. You know,
they will be compared though.
No, they will be. But what I'm saying is you can't. So you can't go like, because it's, you know, it's money. It's 60 million against.
We see it as like,
million,
you know, Dante's Peak and Volcano and Deep Impact and Armageddon. You know, these great films come out at the same time. It's just the way it is.
I would have gone with White House Down and Olympia.
Also, we've got film 2 coming out, so you know, when people go, oh, we've seen that, we want a bit more, and then you've got film 2, and I think film 2 is going to be amazing.
Astutely timed as well, because when his DVD comes out, our second DVD comes out. So
yeah.
Sorry, we've spoken a lot. Is there any more?
The Kemp brothers both met the Krays, or one of the Krays. If they were alive today, would you like to meet them?
Absolutely.
Would you?
Yeah.
I think I'd be terrified.
I would, mate.
I would be very. I would.
Sorry, we can get adult Pampers. We'll be alright.
Yeah. I'd like him to see the film first in a weird way.
I know. I swear that. Really? Yeah. Meet them first, then they can watch the movie. If they watch the movie and they don't like what we've done,
I do think that they loved. They loved the legacy that they created. They revelled in it. So I think they would just see it as an indulgence to their ego, and I think that, you know, it would be fine.
Well, I don't know if you know, but I don't think
I was a posh boy and he was a Brummie, and they'd be like, "What's going on?"
I'm not Brummie, I'm Shropshire. It's kind of country. But I don't think, if I remember rightly, I don't think the Krays liked the first one. I think.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that's what I mean. I don't think they were too impressed by the 90s version, so I don't know, maybe they wouldn't be impressed by us, so probably not.
Okay.
Maybe if we could get on record, if they liked it, we'd meet them.
Yeah.
If they didn't like it, we're alright.
Well, thank you both for your time.